Hello, and welcome to my Pre-Algebra review series. This video covers Chapter 1, Section 9, titled Multiplying and Dividing Integers. By the end of this video, you will have reviewed the procedures for multiplying and dividing integers. Please leave a like if you find this video to be helpful. Give your classmates a heads up too. It will more than likely help them, and it certainly will help this channel to be seen by more students. If you'd like me to cover any of these topics in greater detail, please leave a comment in the comment section below. I read them and do my best to answer each as time permits. Please subscribe to my channel and ring the bell icon to be notified every time I release a new video. Thank you. So let's get to it. Okay, Objective 1, Multiplying Integers. Preparing to multiply integers. Look at the table provided below and fill in the missing cells. The first row is done for you. Okay, so let's look at this. So the first row, it says 3 times the quantity, a negative 5. So that certainly means that the negative is included in this multiplication. And when we do that, we're going to do it as repeated addition. They want us to do it as repeated addition. So it's negative 5 plus a negative 5 plus a negative 5. So 3 negative 5s added together gives you negative 15. Okay, let's do the next one. 5 times the quantity negative 4. So what is that? So we have, again, we can say negative 4 plus the quantity of negative 4 plus the quantity negative 4 plus the quantity of negative 4, I'm running out of space, and then plus the quantity of negative 4. So what does that come out to? We have negative 4 plus a negative 4 is negative 8, then negative 12, negative 16, negative 20. So the sum here is negative 20. Well, 5 times 4 is 20. Okay, and the sign of this 4 is negative. There's only one negative in this problem. Let's do the next one. 2 times negative 8. Okay, so repeated addition is the quantity negative 8 plus the quantity of negative 8. And 2 times 2 negative 8s together is negative 16. And then last here we have 4 times the quantity of negative 10. So 4 times the quantity of negative 10 is negative 10 plus negative 10 plus negative 10 plus the quantity negative 10. That's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. 10 4 times is 40. And every one we're added is negative, so it's negative 40. Okay, so now I ask the question, what do you notice about the signs of the sums? Well, as I look down the list here, I see every one of them, no matter what we were multiplying, although it does look like we were multiplying the same thing in terms of positives and negatives, they're all negative. So, in inductive reasoning, what does the pattern suggest about the product of a positive and a negative integer? If you're going to multiply the product, if you're going to multiply a positive integer times a negative integer, that's what this is. 4 is positive, negative 10 is negative. So what does that imply? It implies that you're always going to have a negative. So up here on this problem, the question here is, all sums are negative. And here the product of a positive and a negative integer is negative. Okay? Okay, for example 1, we have a real-world problem to solve. Well, it looks like it'll probably be pretty easy. Is that you can think of multiplication as repeated addition, just like we did in the previous slide. We multiplied 2 numbers and we did it by adding. So here, a deep sea exploration. After it is launched from a boat, deep rower, descends at 60 feet per minute. Where is it in relation to sea level 3 minutes after it's launched? Well, let's draw a picture. So we got sea level right here with a little bit of waves on the water here. We know that sea rover can descend 60 feet per minute. Okay. The question is, where is it after 3 minutes? Well, they want us to do this by repeated addition. So we're going to, 60 times 3 is what we're doing here. But we're going to do it. Here's a little boat. We're going to go down, and this is 60 feet. Negative. 0 is right here at the top. Sea level is 0. We're going to go down minus 60. And then we're going to go down minus 60 again. This is 1 minute, 2 minutes, and 3 minutes. So here's 60 times 3. How far down is it? If we add these up, we get minus 180 feet in 3 minutes. 180, I'll do feet with a little dash mark right here. 180 feet. And that's repeated addition for multiplication. 3 times negative 160 is negative 180. Okay, example 1, check your understanding. Simplify each product. Well, the product here is 2 times the quantity of negative 6, and we know that that equals to negative 12. 2 times 6 is 12. But if we're going to do by repeated addition, we're going to say minus 6 or negative 6 plus the quantity of negative 6. And what does that equal to? That equals to 12. How about this one? The quantity of negative 3 taken 4 times. So we have quantity of negative 3 plus the quantity of negative 3 plus the quantity of negative 3 plus the quantity of negative 3. 3, 6, 9, 12. The answer is negative 12. And for the last one here, it's the quantity of negative 2 taken 7 times. Well, let's give this a whirl. Negative 2 plus the quantity negative 2 plus the quantity of negative 2 plus the quantity of negative 2 plus the quantity of negative 2, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the quantity of negative 2 plus the quantity of negative 2. And that all equals 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. And they're all negative, so it's negative 14. Okay. Example 2, using patterns to multiply integers. You can use a pattern or patterns to simplify the product of a negative number and a positive number, or the product of 2 negative numbers. Let's use a pattern to find each product. So we're starting out with A here, and A says negative 2 times 5. Well, what they want us to do to show us how we can use the pattern, they're saying start off without the negative, just in case you don't know how to use the negative sign in the multiplication or in this product. So we're going to start off with 2 times 5. Positive 2 times positive 5. And you're going to get a positive 10. We know that 2 times 5 is 10. And then let's reduce this, heading toward our negative number. So then we get 1 times 5, and we get 5. Makes sense, 1 times 5. How about 0 times 5? The answer is 0. Then that means, then what is negative 1 times 5? Well, if you follow the pattern going down, we're counting down 1 at a time, down from 2 to 1 to 0 to negative 1. We got 10, 5, 0. Well, the pattern is negative 5. We got the 5 in here. We got the negative now. And you go to negative 2 times 5, and it's negative 10. So we followed the pattern as we clocked our way down and got to negative 2. We went 10, 5, 0, negative 5, 10, negative 10. Let's do it on the other side here. Negative 2 times negative 5. Okay. So we learned this where we had a positive times a quantity, a negative quantity. We did that on the previous slide. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say 2 times negative 5 right here, and that's equal to negative 10. Okay, we know that one from the previous, how to do that from the previous slide. Then we start marking down. So 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. 0 times negative 5 is 0. And then negative 1 times negative 5, the pattern shows us going back up again. So now it's positive. Oh, and negative 2 times negative 5 is equal to 10. And if you look at this, you see, oh, a negative and a positive make a negative. Negative and a positive make a negative. How about here? Well, we can't really count 0, negative or positive. We'll just say 0, 0. But a negative here and a negative times a negative is a positive here. And a negative times a negative here is a positive. So when it's a negative and a positive, you get negative numbers. On the negatives and the negatives, you get a positive result. Okay, for example 2, under check your understanding, we're going to use a pattern to simplify here. We're going to do a negative times a negative. And in order to do that, we're going to start off on the previous slide where we used a positive here, a positive 3 right here, times the negative 4. The question is negative 3 times negative 4. We're going to start with a positive, and we're going to look at the pattern. And the pattern going down is just like the one in the previous slide. A negative times a positive times a negative is a negative 12. 2 times the negative 4, so positive 2 times the negative 4 is negative 8. Then 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. Going down, we're going to get to 0. 0 times negative 4 is 0. 12, 8, 4, 0. Now positive 4. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. Negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. So the answer to our solution, or to our problem, negative 3 times negative 4 is right here, 12. Then, by inductive reasoning, they're saying here, the patterns from this example suggest rules for multiplying integers. Well, what are those rules? So, multiplying integers, these are key concepts. The product of two integers, the product, that's multiplication, of two integers with the same sign is positive. The product, multiplication, two integers with differing signs is negative. If the signs are different, it's always negative. If the signs are the same, it's always positive. And the product of a 0 and any integer is 0. 0 times any integer is 0. So, positive 3 times a positive 4 is 12. A negative 3 times a negative 4 is 12. These are the two negatives. Here's two positives. An opposite, 3 times a negative 4 is negative 12. Negative 3 times positive 4 is negative 12. Negative 4 times 0 is 0. And 3 times 0 is 0. So no matter what you're doing, those rules will always hold true. Example 3, using rules to multiply integers. Okay, it says multiply. Negative 3, right here, negative 3 times 5 times the negative 4. Negative 3 times 5 times the quantity negative 4. And then we have this little note here. Remember using order of operations. So how are we going to multiply this? We're just going to straight up using the rules that we just learned about multiplication. Two positives together make a positive. Two negatives multiplied together make a positive. And opposite signs, a negative and a positive, make a negative. And anything times 0, of course, is always 0. So using those rules and the order of operations, how are we going to solve this? And this is whether or not it would make a difference to the answer or the solution. We don't care. We're going to use the order of operations. So the first thing we're going to do is what? You do multiplication, right? From which direction? From left to right. Okay? So in our case, we're going to multiply negative 3 times 5. And negative 3 times 5, we're going to do that, times negative 4. Okay? Negative 3 times negative 5 is minus 15, because a negative and a positive form a negative, and 3 times 5 is 15, and that is times negative 4. And now negative 15 and negative 4 together, two negatives, make a positive, and 15 times 4 is 60. So the answer is 60. Okay, they've shown us what to do. So now example 3 under check your understanding. Simplify each product. We're going to do the same thing we did before. So we're going to take its negative 4 times the times 8 times negative 2. Okay? In order to multiply and or divide, and we're multiplying through here. In fact, all the problems are multiplying. We start off by taking the first two terms, and we're going to multiply them together. So we have negative 4 times 8 is negative 32, and that's times the quantity negative 2. And 32 times the quantity of negative 2 is equal to 64. Is it negative or positive? Negative times a negative. Two negatives make a positive. Positive 64. Okay? B. We're going to take these and we're going to multiply them, and we're going to be from left to right. So 6 times negative 3 times the quantity 5. And when we do this, we're going to have 6 times negative 3, which is negative 18. And it's negative because we have a negative and a positive. Opposite signs make it negative. Right here, negative. And then we're going to multiply that times 5, going left to right. So we did the left side, the left piece here. Now we're doing the right. 18 times 5 is 5 times 50, and 5 times 8 is 40. So the answer is negative 90. Okay? And then this one over here is negative 7 times the quantity, negative 14, times 0. Well, we can save ourselves a lot of steps here, because the moment they threw, this is all multiplication, there's no addition. If this was minus 7 plus the quantity, minus 14 times 0 would have been a different answer. But since this is all multiplication, anything times 0 is equal to 0. Okay? Had it been, let's try that. What if it had been negative 7 plus the quantity negative 14 times 0? What would the answer be then? Well, we got to do order of operations. It means you do the multiplication first, and then the addition or subtraction second, at the end, or after the multiplication. So we find our first multiplication problem is right here, and then we're going to have negative 7 plus negative 14 times 0 is 0. Anything times 0 is 0. And now we're going to do addition. Negative 7 plus 0 is equal to negative 7. But this is not our solution to our problem. Our solution is right here, 0, or in this case right there, 0. This is added on for information. Okay? Not part of directions. This piece right here. Okay? Okay, objective 2, dividing integers. The rules for dividing integers are like those for multiplying integers. And the reason is that they're exactly the same, because division, except for the one thing we're going to learn here, division and multiplication are exactly the same operation, just that each are the inverse of the other. So key concepts, dividing integers. The quotient of two integers with the same sign is positive. The quotient of two integers with different signs, is negative, just like in multiplication. Positive sign, same sign, positive. Differing signs, negative. Except for the little hook now. Remember that division by 0 is, let's get this, highlight this, is undefined. Okay? Division by 0, you cannot do it. And here's some examples. 12 divided by 3, both positive, the answer is positive. Negative 12 divided by negative 3, both the same sign, they're equal signs, the same signs, 4, positive 4. 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4, and negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. Okay, example 4, a real-world problem. It's a currency problem. Find the average of the differences in the value of a Canadian dollar and a US dollar for 1994 through 1998. So this table is the value of dollars, Canadian dollars, I guess, both of them really, in pennies or US cents. So in 1994, the Canadian dollar was worth 73 cents, and the US dollar is always 100. It's a dollar, 100 pennies. The difference, this is what the question is asking up here, they want the average of the differences. Well, the difference here for that year, 1994, was 27 cents. The Canadian dollar was 27 cents less valuable, so to speak, than the American dollar. Okay? In 95, it was still 73 cents, the value. The American dollar was still 100. And again, the difference here is 27 cents, negative 27. It's 27 cents less than the American dollar. In 96, it was 74. It went up. It got a little more valuable. So it was worth 74 U.S. pennies compared to 100 U.S. pennies. So that meant that the difference was that it was 26 cents less valuable. In 97, that was 6, 97, it's 72. It dropped back down to 72 cents based on the 100 cents in the American dollar. So now it's worth 28 cents less than the American dollar. 28 cents less. And then here in 98, it's worth 68 cents compared to the American $100. A dollar's worth 100 cents. And that means it's negative 32 or 32% less valuable than the American. So these are the differences. Right here are the differences in the dollar and the Canadian dollar. Down minus 27, minus 27, minus 26, minus 28, minus 32. The question says, find the average of the differences. And how do we find the average? We have to add and then divide. You have to add everything up and then divide by a number. Well, here, what it is. So we have, here's the quantities, 27, 27, 26, 28, 32. Looking here, right over here, on the left, negative 27, plus negative 27, plus negative 26, plus negative 28, plus negative 32. So we're adding up all of the differences here on the top in the numerator, and we're going to divide it by how many? We're going to divide by 5. And why are we going to divide by 5? Because there are 5 differences, 5 values for 5 years. So that'll give us the average. You add up all of these numbers and divide by 5, you're going to have the average of those 5 numbers. And that's what it shows here. It's the equals negative 140. If you add these up, We've written the expression. If we add these up, we have a negative 140 is these all added, and we're going to divide by 5. Okay? Order of operations. How does order of operations fit into this? Well, remember, you say, well, why don't I divide before I add up all these numbers? Well, the division sign right here, this division bar, is the same as an order of operations grouping symbol. So that says group, that bar says group everything above this bar together. So now you have a grouping symbol on these. So you have to do what's inside the grouping symbol before you can do the division. So that's why we use order of operations. And then when you divide minus 140 by 5, you get negative 128 as your answer. And it is negative because we're dividing a negative by a positive. Okay? Okay, example 4, check your understanding, simplify each quotient. And these are going to be easy, this first couple, because we're going to start off here. We're going to have 32 divided by 8, and that equals what? 4. So what is it? Is it negative or positive? Negative and a positive, so that means that it's negative. When you divide and the signs are opposite. For B over here, we have negative 48 divided by negative 6. So we have 2 negatives, it's going to make a positive, so that's going to be able to 48 divided by 6 is 8, and 2 positives make a positive, positive 8. On C, negative 56 divided by negative 4. Again, 2 negatives makes a positive. 56 divided by 4 is 14. And the answer is positive, positive 14. D says, find the average of 4, negative 3, negative 5, 2, and negative 8. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to take the first one. Well, I'm going to write them down. 4 plus negative 3 plus negative 5 plus 2 plus negative 8. Okay, so now we can group these. We can say these two group together. 4 plus negative 3 is 1. And then I can rewrite it. Plus the quantity of negative 5 plus 2 plus the quantity of negative 8. Okay, so now these two are grouped. These are grouped here. Now next is to do these two, the grouping of these two. 1 plus a negative 5 is negative 4. Plus 2 plus negative 8. So negative 4 plus 2, we're going to group these two. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2 plus negative 8. And finally, we're going to group these two. Negative 2 plus negative 8 is negative 10. Okay, so now we've added up all of these numbers. So now that means that we have negative 10 divided, because we're going to take the average of 5 items. So you have to add up the items, and excuse me, let me redo this again. This 10 is kind of hokey. So minus 10, there we go, a little better. And there's 5 items, so we're going to divide it by 5. And minus 10 divided by 5 is equal to, and I'll carry it down here, negative 2. These are opposites, so a negative divided by a positive is negative. 10 divided by 5, 10 divided by 5 is negative 2. There's your answer, negative 2.